Learning how to web? Really? You're either watching this because you hate webbing or you adore webbing or you've never heard of webbing. I don't know. I was in the I don't even like webbing at all category for a while, but I'm going to show you this block and we're going to learn to web my way, which makes it less confusing for me and hopefully for you. These are 2.5-inch squares and I'm laying them in an X. We're going to have this square be 49 patch, so it's 7 by 7. And I just start laying them out randomly. I'm choosing the yellows I like the best. I'm trying to stagger where they go so that they're pleasing to look at. And I like to make these scrappy. I also like to make them monochromatic. I just think they're beautiful. So I call this my X49er block, and it is the perfect block to learn webbing on. I put my 2.5-inch squares away and off we go with my number. So I always put the largest number at the top, and since there's 7, it goes 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I pin them. And I made extra big numbers just so you could really see well for this video. We're going to pin them on, and then I pin the rows together. Now some people when they web, they don't need to pin, they just pick them up and go start sewing them, and I have tried that, and because of my dyslexia I am so confused and it always gets muddled and it's always a mess, which is probably one of the reasons I haven't liked webbing until I figured this out. So for me, I have to line them up. I put them in the rows, the smallest 1 on bottom and 7 on top. Notice the number 7 is facing up. I flip that first block on its face and then I get that first seam and I sew it. I'm going to sew 1/4-inch seams with this. So very carefully, I take the next row, which is number 6 row, and I do the same thing. Right sides together, put the 1 block underneath and the long blocks on top. You can see by the picture what I mean by that. I'm going to let you watch every one because you just have to get that pattern. And once you've done this first set of webbing, then it becomes easier as you go. So my question is, why would we do webbing sewing besides that we can now? And that in and of itself is a reason. So I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but let's watch while I finish this last one and then I pull it, and you can have all of them lined up, and I'm showing you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is where you check to make sure everything's where it should be, the rows are where they should be, everything's happy. Then you get that number 7 row, here it is, and you just grab the next seam. And as you sew the next seam, you check to make sure it has to be the next seam. And that is the only thing really at this point that you will do to goof it up unless you get it all twisted. So don't get it all twisted, just carefully do it. That's why this 49er block is so great at doing this, because it's not a big giant amount. It's only 7 rows, and you can really get good at webbing if you make this block. Back to why we learn webbing just because we can now. I believe that when you are a quilter, getting good at all aspects of quilting helps you. It helps you because as you learn to be good at something, you have better ability to judge whether it's valuable for you or not. So as we start this next row, I want to say that there are quilters who are amazing at webbing and they think it's so wonderful. And I didn't at first, but after becoming good at it and getting muscle memory skills to it, I can see so much more value in it. So for me, it's worth learning every aspect of quilting just for the opportunity to learn it, because you really can't judge it until you get good at it. I laid this out so I can show you the webbing. I'm halfway through, and from here on out, it goes faster and faster as you go. You just put it on and go, and because they're where they belong, it's just really fast to match up the corners. Watch my fingers. I match up a corner. I'll put my finger on it, and I'll match the other side, and I line it up, and I just put it through. It's so fast to do this as you sew. So I didn't pin it so that they're matched. I just pinned them. You watched me do that. But sewing it goes quicker and quicker until you're all the way done. And when you're all the way finished, it's amazing. Here it is finished. And it's together. You don't have to keep track of where the rows are or what the numbers are. I'm going to leave them on just for your benefit to see, but I could take them all off right now. The trick here is now you don't really press until you sew these first 2 together. So you have to decide which way they go and have them budge opposite to each other. You want the seams to nest or budge really clearly into each other so that those corners are as wonderful as you can make them. Now here's the part where muscle memory was a problem for me because I'm used to running my hand down and I can't. So I have learned in practicing this new muscle memory where I just stick my little finger inside and control it that way and play with it that way and get those seams lined up that way. And I think that's one of the things that annoyed me with this method of webbing is that I couldn't use my old muscle memory. But now that I'm getting new muscle memory, it's not such a problem. After this, there's controversy. Some people don't want to press this at all till they're done. I press as I go. I'm happier. It works better. It just works. So this is how I do it. I keep the web part down towards me and I press. This first one, I make sure all the seams are going the direction. That's why you saw me do both sides. I don't do that the rest of the time. But then I pull it up. The webbing is on top and I press it open. And you can see I open it with my hand, put my pressing on there, press it, and then I'm going to check to make sure it's all where it should be, and it's beautiful. That's it. And it's so fast now. This is truly fast. You don't have to think. They're all together. One goes after the other. You budge the seams whichever way they weren't the time before, and you just sew these together. It really does have value. I'm convincing you because I was not convinced that webbing was the best idea ever for so long. If you learn it and get good at it and decide you don't like it, then your opinion on it is way more valuable than if you never got good at it in the first place. So for me, I'm not going to web on every project I do, but I am going to web when it's this 49er block for sure, because I do like how quickly this goes together for me. And I have a project coming up that I'm going to do a video on, and I did web one of them just for the fun of seeing how it worked. And it worked really, really well. This is a really forgiving block, and you're watching me cheat. I'm all about cheating. I'm squaring it up, and I just am lining up the corners, and you can see there's just like a little hair of not perfection. I mean, it's a lot of seams, and this is how I make it square. So this is controversial, and the quilt police might come after you, but it is what I do to make a square block. I made this quilt to play with the 49er block, and it made the novelty fabric of frogs look so darling that in our next video, we're going to talk about color and the 49er blocks and novelty fabrics and how to really make them shine. Meanwhile, be careful to make your X stand out. And here are some beautiful colors to choose from. Start making X 49er blocks. Practice your webbing and have so much fun using up those 2.5-inch squares that you have sneakily hiding somewhere fun at your house. Stay merry and creative.